Yeah. So, hi all. Very good evening and welcome back to the fourth week of live sessions for artificial intelligence knowledge representation and reasoning. First of all, can you hear me properly and is my screen visible? Can you just confirm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So, it's already 6, so let's start the session. Okay. I would also request you to please mute yourself if you don't have a question. That will be helpful for the rest of the session. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so this is one doubt from the previous session, but I'm going to delay it because for some time because the person who had asked it is not yet here. So we'll first discuss the questions from week 5's content. Yeah, Deepak, can you please mute yourself? Okay, I've muted you. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, but otherwise it's helpful if you keep your mic muted. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, first we'll discuss some questions from week 5, and after that, I'll get to the doubts from the previous live session. Okay, so let's get started. So, this is the first question in front of you. So, this question basically asks us about the soundness and completeness of backward chaining and forward chaining. So, like last time, I'll once again launch a poll. Just give me a minute, and then you can share your thoughts over there. Okay, so I've launched the poll already. So those who are new, if you go to the bottom right corner, you'll see an option for activities and there you can cast your votes. Okay, so we have one vote for AC already. Does everyone agree that options A and C are correct, or are there any differing opinions? Okay, so let's see the answer. Uh, A and C, the options A and C are in fact correct because this is a question straight from the lectures. So if you go to the slides, Professor Deepak Khemani also gave a very good example on why these are only sound and not complete. So if you haven't already, I would urge you to please revisit the video lectures and see the example. And the correct answer is that backward chaining is sound and forward chaining is sound, but neither of these are complete. Okay, so any doubts about this particular question? If not, you can just give me a thumbs up or just write yes in chat. Okay, so this was a fairly simple question, so I hope there are no doubts with this one. I'll move on to the next one, but if there are any doubts, please do let me know. Okay, so this is the next question that I've placed in front of you. So we have to select the formulas that are in CNF or conjunctive normal form. Okay, once again, I'll make a poll for this question. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so I've launched the poll. You can share your thoughts over there, or you can write it in the chat, or you can even unmute yourself and if you want to say what do you think are the options that are in the conjunctive normal form. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to go through the options. Okay, so we have one vote for none options. Yeah, Deepak, you raised a hand. Do you want to share something?
Sir, CNF means context normal formula. Context is normal. What is CNF, sir?
CNF is conjunctive normal form. Okay, I'll just revisit the definition of CNF for the sake of those who might not remember it.
Yes.
Okay, can you see this screen? So CNF is basically conjunctive normal form. Okay, conjunctive normal form, and this is a formula of the form C1 and C2 and up to Cn. Okay, and where each C1 or Ci is a disjunction, or it is a or of several literals. Okay, so di1 or di2 or so up to dik, and each di in turn is either a L, or that is a literal, or a negation of that literal. Okay, so this is a representation of a conjunctive normal form. So based on this, let's
Okay,
see.
sir.
Yeah, so we have another vote for A, B, C, and D. So I'll give you a few more minutes to maybe you want to change your answers after we revisited the definition of a CNF. Okay, and then we'll go through all the options one by one. Okay, so let's go through all the options one by one. Let's consider the first option, which is A or B or C. So do you agree this is in CNF? Anything? Yes or no? You can just write Y or N in the chat box. No. Okay, so Naresh says that it's not in CNF. Okay, so think about it. So a CNF is a conjunction of several disjunctions, right? What if we consider A or B or C as one disjunction? So basically what I'm trying to say is, okay, so we know that a CNF is of the form C1 and C2 and so on and so forth up to Cn. Okay, remember this n can be 1 or 2 or anything. Okay, and each Ci is a disjunction. Okay, D1 or D2 or D3, so on. Okay, and this can be L or not of L. So the first option that we have is A or B or C. What if we consider this as D1? Okay, then our Ci would just be equal to, let's say this is D1, Ci will be equals to D1, and our formula would become just C1. Okay, C1 and nothing else. So now do you think this is in CNF? Yeah, exactly. This is in CNF, right? With just one disjunction of three literals A, B, and C. So A is a CNF. What about the second option? Yes, once again, thanks Naresh. So this is a clearly a proper fit as per the definition of a CNF, where we have A and B and C. So A is C1, B is C2, and C is C3. Okay. Uh, so B is also in CNF. What about C? So option C is not in CNF, right? Because it's not in the proper form that is the definition of a CNF. It may or may not be able, we may or may not be able to convert it to a CNF form. Okay, that is a different question. But right now, the form that is given to us in option C, that is not in CNF, right? Do you agree with me? Anyone? Yes or no? Okay, great. Thanks, Naresh. So C is not in CNF. What about D? Remember when we discussed the definition, we told that only literal can be a literal or a negation of that literal, okay? Not the disjunction itself. So with that in mind, I'm giving you a hint. Will option D be in CNF? Yeah, it won't be, right? Because your this whole or of A or B or C has a negation which is not accepted. This is also not in CNF. And the last option is again in CNF, right? Because we have a conjunction of two disjunctions. The first one, the C1 is not A or B or C, and C2 is not C or not D or E. Okay, so if I just have to point it out, so the last option is not A or B or C, and not C or not D or E. Not C or not D. Sorry about that. Okay, so this becomes our D1, this becomes our D2, or is it the other way? It's actually C1 and C2, where our C1 is again not A or B or C. So this is our D1, this is our D2, this is our D3, right? As per this definition. Okay, so the correct option is A, B, and E. Okay, so I'll stay a couple of minutes or 1 minute on this question. If there are any doubts, please let me know. Okay, so I'm assuming there are no doubts in this question. If there are, do let me know. You can feel free to either raise a hand or unmute yourself or write it in the chat if you have any doubt. Okay, for now, let's move on to the third question, which is as follows. So we have to select the formulas that are in clause form. Okay, so once again, I'm not launching a poll for this one. I'll let you go through the options and then you can either unmute yourself or write it in the chat about which options do you think is or are correct. Okay, I'll give you a minute to go through the options. Okay, so does anyone want to share their thoughts on which options do you think uh, is or are correct or not correct? Okay, first of all, do you remember what is the clause form? Okay, so we have one answer, but thanks Balaji. You say that option C and D are correct. Okay, we'll see. So do the others also agree with Balaji, or are there any differing opinions? Okay, so let's discuss the answers. So a clause form, if you recall, is of this form. Okay, a first order formula is in clause form. It is if it is of the following form. So you have a number of for all or universal quantifiers all on the left, and then you have a conjunction of C1 and C2 and up to Cn. Okay, each clause is a each Ci is a clause made of disjunction of literals. Okay, same like we saw last time, and each literal is an atomic formula or is negation. So based on that definition, of course, the first one doesn't belong to a clause form, right? Because you have an implies and a there exists within the formula. Same for B. But for option C, you have a set of universal quantifiers all on the left. Then you have not of t of x or not owns x comma y, so on and so forth. So option C is in clause form, right? And option D is, simply a way to rewrite option C with these universal quantifiers replaced by these question mark x, which is a universally quantified variable. Okay, so Balaji was in fact correct. Option C and D are the right options, and A and B are wrong. Okay, any doubts about this particular question? I'll give you a minute to convince yourselves about the correct options, and then we'll move on to the next question. Okay. Okay, so it seems like there are no doubts about this question, so that's great. Let's move on to the next one. So here we are given a formula that is not in CNF, and we have to select the correct CNF representation of this particular formula. Okay, so this might require a bit of working out on your part, so I'll give you some time. In the meanwhile, I'll create a poll for this question. Okay, so I've created and launched the poll. Once you have an answer, you can share it over there, or you can write it in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to work out the solution, and then we can discuss it. Okay, some one hint that you can get from the option in the poll is that only one of these options is the correct one. Okay, it's either A or B or C or D. So that's a very small hint. Remember, you have to expand it into a CNF form. So you basically want a bunch of uh, so basically you want a conjunction. Okay, so you want a bunch of things that are connected by AND operators, right? So here you have something or something else. Okay, so first what you might like to do is you might want to expand on one of the operators from the first uh, bracket that we have, basically A and B implies C, that you have in the first or to the left of the first OR, right? So you might want to expand that particular and get it into a bit of a simplified form that is a bit closer in resemblance to a CNF. Okay, I'll give you one more minute and then we'll discuss the solution, okay? Okay, so let's discuss the solution. Okay, so here I have the solution worked out for you, but then let's go through it step by step. Okay, let me use a different color just for the sake of highlighting. Okay, so this is, maybe I should use a lighter shade. So this is the form in which you were given the formula, right? The first thing that you can do is you can rewrite this particular implies and open it using not B or C, right? So B implies C, right? B implies C can be rewritten as not B or C. Okay, that is exactly what is being done over here. Okay, you're first rewriting this implies with not B or C. Okay, next what you're doing is, as I was telling, you are distributing this OR over AND. Okay, so basically what you have is, if you have something like P and Q or R and S, let's say, you can expand this particular OR over this AND. Okay, so you will have P from here or R and S and Q or R and S. Okay, so using this similar logic, what's happening over here is, maybe I'll use a laser pointer. See, what you're doing is you're doing this A or this whole thing, A and B and D. Okay, so this is what you are writing over here, A or A and B and D, and similarly this and this one comes over here, and then you have this part, not B or C, not B or C, or from this one, A and B and D. Okay, so is it clear until this step? Okay, I hope it's clear. Let's move on to the other steps. I'll just remove this. Okay, so let's mark it. We have done this step and we have done this step. Okay, and now our formula is in this particular form. Now you once again distribute an OR over the AND. Okay, and this time you do it in all in these individual components separately. Okay, so first consider this left hand side component. Okay, so here you will have A or A or B, and A or D, all of these connected with ANDs. Okay, so this becomes one part. And similarly, on the other side of this particular AND, you have not P or C or A, not P or C or B, not P or C or D. Okay, so we have completed this step and now we are in this state of the formula. Any doubts until this point?
No, we are clear.
Okay, great. Okay, then you will simplify at the innermost level. Okay, so basically this A or A becomes simply just A. Okay, you have A and A or B and A or D, and on the other hand you have not B or C or A. You open this particular black bracket. Similarly you do it for this one, not P or C or B and not P or C or D. Okay, so we have done this step as well, and now we are in this particular state. Okay, now we'll remove the unwanted parentheses. Okay, so we have a couple of extra parentheses, right? So for the sake of our understanding, we'll simplify them, and after that we'll arrive at this particular state. Right, so we have not A and A or B and A or D, and okay, so basically you're doing away with these particular parentheses at the start, these ones in the middle. Okay, just so that you have an arrangement of a couple of things, a bunch of things connected with simply ANDs. Okay, in the next step what you would do is you would simplify this particular part, right? So you have not B or B over here, right? So this evaluates to true as shown over here. So you will replace this particular part with true. Okay, so you will have, and anything and with true is that thing itself, right? So alpha and true is alpha itself. So we will simply remove this particular part, and now we have this. So we have done this, and this is in a CNF form. Okay, we can rearrange it so that it looks in pretty in alphabetical order or ascending order. So we will have A or B, and A or D, and A or not B or C, and not P or C or D. Okay, so this is what we have arrived at. And if you go to the options, you will see that this corresponds to option B. Okay, so I'll let you go through the solution steps once, and if you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so is there any doubt on this question, or should we move on?
We'll move on.
Okay, thanks, Mohan. We'll move on to the next question then. Uh, okay, this is the next question. So here you have each option contains a first order logic formula and a scolemized formula. We have to select the options that show the correct scolem form. Okay, so here Sk basically corresponds to a scolem constant or a function depending on the scenario or situation. You have to select the correct scolemizations from the following four options. Okay, so once again I'll launch a poll for this question. Okay, so I've launched the poll. You can uh, say your options over there, or say your answers over there, or you can write in the chat as well, or you can also unmute yourself if you want. Once again, I'll give you a moment to go through the options and then we'll discuss it. Okay, so we have one vote for A, B, and D. So do the others also agree? Again, one hint that you can get from the options is that option A is in all of the options, right, in the poll. So you can conclude safely that A is correct. But A alone is not correct. There are other options as well that are correct along with A, right? Okay, so let's consider these options one by one. So the first option, option A, as we discussed, is the correct one because we have there exists x for all y, p of x and y, and you can replace x with a Skolem function, Skolem constant, not a function, Skolem constant. So you have p sk1 and you have a universally quantified variable y. Okay, this makes sense. This is correct. Okay, can anyone tell why we are replacing it with a Skolem constant and not a function? Remember, we had discussed this in the last live session. Anyone?
Yeah, X is not under the scope of universal quantifier.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Naresh. So that is the correct answer because x is a first of all x is an existentially quantified variable and it's not in the scope of y, which is a universally quantified variable, right? Option B we have the other case where x is in the scope of y. So here we are replacing x with a Skolem function and it is a function of the universally quantified variable which is y. So option B has for all y there exists an x such that p of x and y. We are replacing this with or we are Skolemizing this as p of the Skolem function sk1 which is a function of y and then we have variable y. Right? So option B is also correct. Right? Now coming to the let's discuss option D first, or let's discuss option C first. In fact, that would be a bit easier for us. So here you have for all y, then you have a bracket. There exists x such that pxy and qx implies ry. So you can first simplify this, right? So yeah, just to go over the options A and B once. Uh, this is what we are doing over here, right? Just like we discussed. Now option C, okay. First we will rewrite this implies, okay. So you have rewriting this imply you have not of there exists pxy and qx or ry, okay. Then you will push this negation towards the inside, okay. So you do that, you push it, and by doing that, while doing that, you convert this there exists to a for all, right? Because not of there exists x will be converted to a for all x, right? So you have for all x, the not of pxy and qx or ry remains as it is on the other hand. And then you push this negation even further inside this particular part, okay. So this becomes for all y for all x not of pxy or this and becomes an or not of qx, okay. So you have pushed the negation to the deepest level. Then you move all the alpha quantifiers to the left. So you have for all y, for all x on the extreme left over here, and then you have everything else on this part, right? Over here. You remove the unwanted parentheses and simplify it. So you have basically for all y, for all x, not of pxy or not of qx or ry. Okay. So you next step you remove this alpha quantifiers from the left and replace it with a question mark and variable name, right? So all of these are universally quantified variables, so you replace it with question mark x, question mark y. Similarly, not q of x or r of question mark y. Okay. Lastly, you remove this last parenthesis as well, and what you get is this, right? And this is exactly what option C is, right? This is the columnized version. So option C is correct. And if you look at option D will not be correct because you will not have any scolum constant in this particular scolumization. Because when you are expanding this particular implies and then pushing the negation to the deepest level, you are doing away with the existential quantifier and you have only universal quantifiers left in the formula. Okay, so the correct options would be A, B, and C. I'll let you go through the steps for arriving at each of them, especially option C. And if you have any doubts, we can discuss it. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Yeah, so Balaj, so for option D, we don't need to do the derivation because I'll show you the options once. Just give me a moment. If you see the formula on the left hand side is exactly the same for C and D, right? You have for all y there exists x, px comma y and qx implies ry. Okay, and we already saw that the correct scolumized formula for this particular formula is this, right? So we don't even need to look at option D. We can straight away say that option D is incorrect. Yeah. Okay. So I'm assuming there's no further doubt in this particular question. If there are, please let me know. In the meanwhile, we'll move on to the next question, which is regarding the consistency or inconsistency of knowledge bases. So you are given two knowledge bases, KB1 and KB2, each with its own set of facts, and you are to decide which of these are consistent or inconsistent. Okay, so this also might require a bit of working out on your part. So if you have a pen and paper around, you can work it out quickly. I'll give you a couple of moments and then we'll discuss the answers. Okay, so I've launched a poll for this question as well. You can uh, share your options or answers over there as well, or you can write it in the chat. Okay, so we have one vote for both knowledge bases are consistent. Okay, so okay, so first of all, when do you say a knowledge base is inconsistent? Can anyone share? Does anyone want to share?
It will be inconsistent if any predicate and the negation of predicate both are present at with at once.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So uh, we'll look at all both these knowledge bases one by one, and we'll see that one of them is inconsistent and the other one is actually consistent. Okay, so let's look at the first knowledge base first. So we have D and F. Okay, is one fact. A or not D is another one. F implies not A, and A and D imply B. Okay. Okay. So I have written down these four facts of the knowledge base or the first knowledge base. Okay. And let's break it down one by one. Okay. So first we'll break down this D and F, and we know that anything with an AND can be broken down into its constituents, right? So we have D from 1, which is D and D, by simplifying the and we have F from 1 again by simplifying the AND. Okay, so we have D and F. Now from this D that we derived over here and this A or not D, right? So basically we have A or not D and we have D. Using these two we can write A, right? Using disjunctive syllogism. Okay, so using these two we arrive at A. Okay, now okay, so we have arrived at F and A. Now let's take into consideration this F from the first one that we got and the third rule, or the third fact. Okay, so we have F implies not A, and we also have F, right? So we apply modus ponens and we get not of A, right? So we have derived both A and not of A, right? Therefore, knowledge base 1 is inconsistent. Any doubt about this part? About knowledge base 1? Okay, that's great. Let's look at knowledge base 2 then. So here we have 5 facts which are C and D, A or not C, F implies D, E implies not D, and A and D both imply B. Okay, so firstly we'll simplify this first fact again. So we will have C and D from that. Okay, now next we'll have A or not C, which is a fact that is given to us over here, and we have C. from the first step that we derived, and using disjunctive syllogism again we can derive A, right? That is what is written over here. Now let me just remove this and this as well. Okay, now using E and the fourth one, which is E implies not D. So we have E implies not D, and NE that we derived from the first one. Using modus ponens, we can write not D, right? Also, if you consider the third one, right, we have, let me just remove this. We have F implies D and a not D that we just derived, right, over here. So using modus tollens this time, we can derive a not F, which is exactly what is given over here. And now there is nothing else to derive, right? We have derived everything that could be derived, and we saw that there are no contradictions, right? Therefore, this knowledge base will be consistent. Okay, so the correct answer would be knowledge base 1 is inconsistent while knowledge base 2 is consistent, which is exactly what is given in option D. KB1 is inconsistent and KB2 is consistent. Okay, so option D is correct, not option A or B or C or E. Okay, I'll once again give you a moment to go through these steps, and if you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay, so thanks Balaji for your message in the chat, and I hope there are no doubts from this question because it was a pretty straightforward one. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. If there are any doubts, we can always come back to this particular question once again. Okay, so the next question asks us which of the following clauses correspond to the equality axioms. Okay, so once again I'll create a poll for this question. Sorry, I muted myself. I was saying that once again I'll create a poll for this question. Give me a moment. Alright, so I've launched the poll. You can, once you have you have convinced yourselves about the answers, you can share them through the polls or you can write it in the chat box as well. Just as a refresher, I'll quickly share the equality axioms with you once. Okay. So if you remember from the lectures, the following axioms describe some properties of equality that always hold. Okay. So you have reflexivity, symmetry, transitivity. So reflexivity says that for all x, x equals to x. Symmetry says that for all x and y, x equals to y implies y equals to x. Transitivity says that for all x, y, z, if x equals to y and y equals to z, this implies x equals to z. Okay. Similarly, there are substitution for functions and substitution for predicates. So these are some of the equality axioms. With this quick refresher, I'll shift back to the questions and you can have a look at the options once again. Okay, so we have one vote for options A, C, and E. Okay, let's have a look at the equality axioms once more. We have a reflexivity for all x, x equals to x, but we don't have a negation anywhere outside of it, right? So can option A be correct then? Option B in fact does suit, right, with the reflexivity condition. Okay, let's look at the so we discussed option A. Option A is not correct. Let's look at option B. Option B says x equals to x, and this question mark basically implies there is a universal quantification involved, right? So this is just for all x, x equals to x, which is the same as the reflexivity condition that we just saw. For all x, x equals to x, right? So option B would be correct, right? Similarly, option D will also be correct. Remember, I'm talking about option D over here. Okay. So we have not of x equals to y or y equals to x. Okay. So this basically means that either x equals to y or x is not equals to y. And if x is equals to y, then y will be equals to x. Okay. So option D will be correct. This is the symmetry condition, right? Similarly, if we have a look at option F, x equals to y, y equals to z, and they have a not in front of it, or x equals to z, right? So this basically converts to when we have x equals to y and y equals z, we will also have x equals z. Okay. This is the transitivity condition. Another way to look at it is let's consider option D. So not of something or something. Okay. This is how we simplify implies, right? So if we have not of A or B, we can write it as A implies B. So you can use a similar logic to say that whenever x equals to y, that implies y equals to x, right? So x equals to y implies y equals to x. This is the same as this, right? Symmetry. For all x and y, x equals to y implies y equals to x. Similarly, when you open this transitivity condition, when you open this implies, we would have not of x equals to y and y equals to z, or x equals to z, right? And if you further expand that negation over here at the front of it, you would get what is shown in option F over here. Is not of x equals to y or not of y equals to z or x equals to z, which basically means that when x equals to y and y equals to z, this implies that x equals to z. Okay, and options C and E are not matching with any of the options, right?
But it is not of, no. So not of x is equal to y, not of, or not of
Yeah.
y is equal
Okay,
to
give me a
z.
moment. I'll write it out for you. So for transitivity, what do you have? You have
Yeah,
x equals to y and y equals to z implies x equals to z. Okay,
yes, yes.
so you have x equals to y and y equals z implies x equals z. Okay,
Where are you writing? Your screen is not visible.
okay, now is it visible?
Yeah, now it's visible.
Okay, now let's simplify this implies. Okay, so what will be this converted to? We will replace this with an or, and there will be a negation in front of this one. Do you agree? Because P implies Q is equivalent to not P or Q. Okay, you agree with me?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay, now let's
yeah.
further simplify this and expand this negation at the front that we have. So what will we
You
have
first
here?
removed implied, not x, not y.
Not x equals y. This and will be converted to or, not y equals z, z, or x equals z, right? So if we just remove this particular parenthesis, because this is an extra parenthesis, and this as well, do you end up with the same thing that is there in the option? You have not of x equals
What
to
is the
y.
option? Not, not of, or not of y is equal to z.
Okay, I'll show you the
Or
option
is
once
equal
more.
to z.
The same thing, right?
Yeah, the question mark is not there. No?
The question mark just means universal quantification. For the sake of ease in writing, I missed that. You can add it over here.
Okay.
Question mark over here.
No.
Okay,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So the correct options are B, D, and F. Okay, I'll,
Okay.
yeah, I'll give you a moment to convince yourselves, and then we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so I hope there are no further doubts. Let's move on to the next question. So this is the eighth question in front of you. We are given a knowledge base called KB3 or knowledge base 3, and KB3 is in clause form. Okay, and SK basically corresponds to Skolem constant or function, and this is the knowledge base that we have. So first fact is not of house X or taxable of X. So these question marks are again standing for universal quantification. What we have to find is which one of the following are possible resolvents produced by the resolution method. Okay, so this will again once again require some working out. So I'll give you a moment, and in the meantime I'll create a poll. Okay, in the meantime you can solve this if you have a pen and paper around, and then we can discuss. Okay, so I've launched the poll. You can once you have convinced yourselves about the answers, you can share them through the poll, or you can also write it in the chat as you wish. Okay, so we already have two votes, one for options A, B, and C, and another one for options A, C, and D. Okay, so if you're still solving it, that's fine. You can continue solving it. We'll discuss it now, and then you can verify your answers with the discussion that we had. Okay, since this one is a bit involved or a bit longer than the other solutions, I'll just spend some more time in this particular question. Okay. Okay. So I will encourage you to derive all possible resolvents. Okay. But for this particular question, we'll confine ourselves to the options that are given to us. If you are able to derive all options, then we'll stop there. Okay. So this is the knowledge base that is given to us. Okay. The first resolvent that we get is by substituting this using this C4 and C5 and substituting this Z with Jack. Okay, so we have not of landlord Z or house SKZ. Okay, so I'm writing it in a short form, and then we have C5 as landlord Jack. Okay, so we substitute this variable Z with Jack, and we arrive at, basically we use disjunctive syllogism and we arrive at house of SK Jack. Okay, that is what is written over here. That is the first resolvent that we have. Okay, fine. Next, let's consider, so remember last time we had considered C4 and 5. This time let's consider C3 and 5. Okay, So C3 you have again not of landlord Y or owns Y and SKY. Okay, I'm not writing the whole thing because of lack of space. And then C5 we have landlord Jack. Again we replace or substitute Y with Jack. Okay. Okay, so this should have been a Y, I think. Let me just correct it. Yeah, this is to be a Y. So we replace Y with Jack, and what we get is owns Jack and SK Jack. Okay, which is what is the second resolvent over here, owns Jack and SK Jack. Okay, let me just remove this. Okay, next we are going to consider this first resolvent that we derived. Okay, that is house of SK Jack, and the first one C1, which is not of house X or taxable X. Okay, so what we have is not of house X or taxable X, and from this first resolvent you have house of SK Jack. Okay, so this time you substitute X with SK Jack. Okay, you substitute X with SK Jack, and again using disjunctive syllogism you get taxable SK Jack. Okay, which is what the third resolvent is over here, taxable SK Jack. Okay, now let's erase this. Let's erase this as well. Alright, next what we'll consider is the second resolvent that we arrived at, which is owns Jack, SK Jack and C2. Okay, wherein we have this long thing. Okay, so I'm writing it in very short form. Okay, so we have not owns something something, then we have or not taxable something, and then taxpayer something else. And then from R2 we have owns Jack, SK Jack. Okay, again we'll substitute so we have U over here, right? Let me use a different color to indicate. So we'll substitute U with Jack, and we'll substitute V with SK Jack. Okay, which is what is shown over here. We'll substitute U with Jack and V with SK Jack, and again using disjunctive syllogism what we'll get is we'll do away with this owns part, and we'll remaining with not taxable of SK Jack and taxpayer Jack, which is what is shown over here. Okay, so this is our fourth resolvent. Okay. So R4 is done. Okay. Now remember R3 we had derived taxable SK jack, and here we have not taxable SK jack or taxpayer jack. Okay. So again, using disjunctive syllogism, here we don't need to substitute anything. Uh, we'll just do away with this taxable part and we'll only be remaining with this taxpayer part. Okay. That is what we will get in this fifth resolvent, which is taxpayer jack. So we have arrived at taxpayer jack. Now we will use C1 and C2. Okay. And we will substitute X with V. Okay. So what will we have? If we substitute this X with V, we will do away with this taxable and not taxable part. Okay. And what will we be remaining is the unification of, or the, not unification, the union of not house X, okay, or which is V because we have substituted X with V. Then we'll have not owns U and V, or taxpayer U, okay, which is basically what R6 is shown over here. Not of house V or owns U, or not owns U comma V, or taxpayer U. Okay, so let's pause and check whether we have derived some or all of the options that were given to us. Okay, so let's first consider house SK jack. Okay, and let's see whether we did derive it. So we see, or let's use green, we did derive it, right? We have house SK jack over here. We did derive. Next, let's consider option C, which is taxpayer jack. Okay, we also derive taxpayer jack right here. Okay, this is also there. Then let's consider the D, or the last option, not house V, or not owns UV, or taxpayer U. We also derived this one right here. Okay, but we were not able to derive this one. Owns SK jack comma jack is something that we were not able to derive, and we won't be able to derive. Okay, not of taxpayer jack also can't be derived. I'll let you verify it later on when you have free time. You can verify it yourselves. But for now, we see that we were able to derive options A, C, and D, but not B. Okay, so which of the following are possible resolvents produced by a resolution method? The answer would be A, C, and D. Okay, so I'll once again shift to the Jamboard. I'll clear up this mess and I'll let you go through the steps once so that you can convince yourselves. Okay, this was question 8. Okay. I'll give you a moment to go through the steps, and if you have any doubts, we can discuss it. So Balaji, sequence R1 to R6 is, so this is if you are asking about how exactly this particular sequence did we arrive at, that is something that we chose to do. Okay. Yeah, that is something that we chose to do. If some other sequence would have been possible to arrive at these particular facts, we could have chosen that as well. Okay. But just because this was a bit convenient, or this is the way that I approached it, I've written it in this way. But yeah, it's not necessary that you have to follow only one particular sequence of getting the resolvents. If there are other correct sequences, they will, yes, give the same results as well. You basically have to look at using or deriving what things first will help you to derive other things later on. Okay. For example, if you look over here, deriving this house jack and owns jack gave us the ability to use this R1 C1 substitution and R2 C2 substitution to derive taxable SK jack and not taxable SK jack, and this whole thing later on. Okay. And similarly, deriving R3 R4 helped us derive R5 later on, this one. Okay. So this is why this is a bit convenient way to derive the resolvents. But if there had been some other way possible that could have resulted in the correct answer, then sure, we could have used that as well. Okay, the condition here, the important thing is that it should be correct. Okay, the whatever sequence you choose to derive it in. So in this question, since you were given the options, right? So you could modify your search process accordingly, right? For example, the first option you know was house of SK and Jack. So you did some substitution such that you got house of SK and Jack first. Also, another point of convenience is that you were already given this landlord Jack. That made it easy for you to use the substitution in C4 and C5. Okay, so it's also a matter of what kind of a knowledge base is given to you. If you have a knowledge base that has convenient facts given to you, you can start with them and derive the resolvents, so on and so forth. But in case that the options are not given to you, then you can rely simply on the knowledge base and not on what could be the possible answers. Okay. Suppose you did not know what options you knew, or what options are correct, or what options you have. You just knew this particular knowledge base. Just this much is what you had. Then you see that landlord Jack is there. Okay. And there is not of landlord in another of these facts that is given to you, then you can use it as a substitution in this first, or you could use it over here. Okay, so you could do C3 C5 first or C4 C5 first, so R1 and R2 could have been exchanged in position, and then you could have gone with something else, R1 C1 and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm assuming that there are no further doubts in this particular question. If there are, please do let me know. In the meantime, let's move on to the next question, which is, so the premise is the same, and we are asked use resolution refutation method to determine the correct entailments. Okay, so the knowledge base remains the same. This KB3 that was given to us, and we have to find out which of these options can be entailed from this. Okay, so one of them we actually just saw. We just saw that we can derive taxpayer jack from here, right? We can already see that taxpayer jack. So option A will be a correct option that we can straight away say based on the steps that we followed for the last question. Okay. Which of the other options do you think we can entail from the knowledge base?
I think option C also you derived something, no?
Okay, option D also, option C also we derived. Let us check.
Yes.
Oh,
See that?
option C is landlord jack, right? Which is just given to us as a part of the knowledge base itself. So obviously it can be entailed. Thanks for pointing that out on. Yeah. Okay, so I'll not give many more time to this question because we have already seen what are the two possible entailments. The other two, B and D, cannot be entailed. I'll let you verify that yourselves later on. Okay. This was the knowledge base. Okay. I hope there are no doubts. If there are, please do let me know. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question, which is a general question about the resolution refutation process. So we are asked in general, when resolution refutation runs on any set of clauses in first order logic, which of the following options could be correct? Does it always produce a unique proof or derivation? Does it always terminate with an empty clause? Or does it always terminate first of all? Or none of the above are correct? So which of these are do you think are correct? I'll create a poll. Sorry about that. And then you can share your thoughts over there. Give me a moment. Yeah, so I've launched the poll. You can share your thoughts over there, or you can write in the chat as well. Okay, so we have two votes for that resolution refutation always terminates. Are you sure?
Let's check now.
So basically, a resolution refutation method, let me show you an example from something that Sir discussed in his lectures. Maybe that will be a bit helpful. Just give me a moment. Okay, so this is an example resolution refutation. Okay, the Alice goes to college problem that Sir discussed in his lectures. And here we terminated when we had this empty box. Okay, now what if we had a knowledge base that didn't allow us to terminate in this empty knowledge base? Okay, in this case this knowledge base had this not goes to Alice college. uh, this was given to us in the knowledge base, and so when we arrived at goes to Alice college, We were able to combine these and arrive at an empty clause. What if this was not given to us? Then we wouldn't be able to terminate, right? That is exactly what this question asks. In such cases, when we are not able to terminate with an empty clause, we will not terminate basically, right? So option C is not always true. And because option C is not always true, consequently options A and B are also not always true. If we have some case where it is not terminating, which means that it's not terminating with an empty clause, right? So B is not correct. And if it's not able to terminate, we will not be able to produce a unique proof for derivation, right? So option A is also incorrect. So the correct option in this case would be none of the above. Okay. All right. So this is a question from the kind of a theoretical question from the lecture. So I would urge you to revisit the lectures if you haven't already, to get a better understanding about resolution refutation. And this question brings us to an end of the week 5 based questions that we were discussing for today. And let's quickly move on to the first doubt question that I had mentioned. So I'm not sure if that person is here in the meeting. Is Orghodeep here? Okay, let me just check. Okay, it seems like he has missed this particular live session. That's fine. He can watch it later on. So basically, he had raised a doubt is that, so there was one question in the week 4 quiz, I think, the current assignment, which was this basically, that alpha, beta, gamma, and delta be formulas over the set of propositions P, Q, and R, given the conjunction alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and not of alpha, beta, gamma, and not of delta as input. A tabular method may be used to show that, and all of these were the correct options. Okay. And his doubt was that we had discussed a similar question in one of the live sessions, and there we had only satisfiable and unsatisfiable as the correct options. And I revisited the questions later on and the options later on, and I found out that while the premise was the same for both the questions that was there in this assignment and the one that we had discussed, the options and what was asked was different. Hence the different correct options in the two questions. Okay. So here basically the conjunction is satisfiable or unsatisfiable, that we can use the tabular method to show. Okay, that so that there is no debate about that, and we can show that this thing is a tautology by if we are able to prove that uh, there is no model for the input that we are giving to the tabular method. Okay, so I'll just quickly show you something. Okay, so here I've written a set of simplification or derivation. So we have alpha and beta and gamma implies delta. Okay, forget about this phi part for now. Just stay with me till the derivation. Okay, so we expand this phi first, or if this implies first. Okay, so we get not of alpha and beta and gamma or delta. Okay, we further expand this negation sign. Okay, and we arrive at this particular expression, which is not alpha or not beta or not gamma or delta. Okay, and we say that let's assume that this is equals to phi. Okay, and what is the negation of phi? Which is basically this alpha and beta and gamma and not delta. Okay, and what you are giving as input to the tabular method is this thing, alpha and beta and gamma and not delta. Okay, this thing you are giving as input. So if you are able to find something, if you are able to find using the tabular method that there is no model for this one, which means there is no model for not phi, which means that not of phi is a tautology, or phi is a tautology, which means this thing is a tautology. right? Which is what one of the options says. We are able to prove that this is a tautology and hence this is a correct option. In the question that we had discussed, the one of the options asked, can we prove that the conjunction itself is a tautology? That we cannot prove because we are giving the conjunction itself as input, right? And if that is unsatisfiable, we will only be able to prove that the negation of that is a tautology, not the conjunction itself. Okay, so I would urge you to revisit both these questions, this one and the one that we had discussed in the second live session, if I remember correctly. And I hope any doubt that might be there in any minds would be clarified. Okay, with that out of the way, so we have less time left to discuss the week 4 questions or the current assignment questions. Okay, so is there some particular question from week 4 current assignment that you want me to discuss? Then we'll go to that. So we had already discussed some week 4 based questions in the previous live session. Or the week before, I'm not sure. Just check it out. The slides will be there in the folder. These are the questions from the current assignments that you might have solved, uh, just the previous assignment that you might have solved. Okay. And if there is something specific that you want me to discuss, some specific question, then we can discuss that. Okay, I remember that there was one request to discuss questions 7 and 8, so maybe I'll go through that. Okay. So question 7 asked, according to FOL semantics, which of the following are models of the sentence? For all x, tall x implies likes x comma ada in LPFC. Okay. So here basically what you have to look at is whether any of these, whether this universal quantifier or this implies is being violated or not. Okay, and whether that corresponding thing that you have is a model or not. So let's consider the first one. Okay. Since we are concerned only with tall and likes, let's concentrate on only those two parts. So we have tall in the first option, we have tall equals to Ada and Ben. Okay, so we must have tall Ada and tall Ben as two facts, right? And corresponding to them, if this is to be true, we must also have likes x comma Ada accordingly, right? So if we have tall Ada, we must have likes Ada comma Ada, which is there over here, right? And if we have tall Ben, we must have likes Ben comma Ada, which is also there. Okay, so option A is correct. Similarly, option B is also correct. We have tall Ada and tall Ben and likes Ada and likes Ben Ada. Option C is incorrect because although you have tall Ben, you don't have likes Ben comma Ada. Okay, so option C is incorrect. And option D is correct because you don't have any tall fact, right? So the likes can exist independently also. So that explains question 7, which I also had mentioned briefly to in as a reply to the person who had raised that question. So yeah, I thought about this question further, and I uh, think that what we had discussed in that email thread. So for those who are not aware of what that thread was, you can go to the discussion forum. Okay, and it was this particular email thread that you can revisit later on. Okay, regarding questions 7 and 8 options, I've given a brief explanation over there, and I had said that I'll give it some more thought before discussing the same. So I thought about it and I uh, stick with my brief explanation that I had given earlier over here. Okay, let's quickly discuss question 8 as well. Question 8 is also similar, but the formula is different over here. Okay, here we have there exists x and tall x and likes x comma Ada. So following similar logic, we have, so remember this is a there exists, not a for all. So even if we have some x for which this condition is satisfied, we are good to go. Okay, so the first option is correct, second option is correct, and the third option is also correct. You can verify it. The fourth option is not correct because we do not have any x such that we have tall x as well as likes x comma ada. Okay, for example, if we have to take this one example, likes Ben comma ada, we do not have a corresponding tall Ben, right? Hence option 4 is incorrect and all the other three options are correct. So you can also revisit this brief explanation over here if you have any doubts about this particular question 7 and 8. Okay. Any other question from week 4 that you want me to discuss? Anything specific?
Yeah, 11th question can you discuss?
11th. Okay, let's go to the 11th question. Okay, so you have contract buyer seller broker is a predicate and coach and friend and father are functions and xyz are variables. Treat the remaining as constants. Which of the following pairs of clauses are unifiable? Okay, so the first option says not contract ada comma ben comma coach cam. Can this be unified with this? Yes, this can, right? We can replace x with ada, y with ben, and z with coach cam, right? So if you had attended the previous live session where I discussed a similar question where I had explained that when exactly can you do the unification, okay? So revisit those slides from week 4 which explains the unification process and what can be unified with what. Okay, that will help you clarify why this option is correct and why some option is not correct. This option is not correct because here you have a variable which is y and here you have a function which is coach x. Okay, you cannot unify these particular things if I remember correctly. You can also verify it using the unification algorithm. Similarly for option 3, option 4 again you can unify. You can replace y with ada, z with ben, and y with x. So option 4 is correct. Okay.
So if we replace y with both x and ada, won't it create any ambiguity like or something?
Um, I don't think so because here you are replacing uh, or here you can say you replace friend of y with friend of ada. Okay, that would make do away with any ambiguity that there could exist. Okay, so just revisit the unification slide, the unification algorithm slide from week 4, and hopefully that will help you resolve any queries.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? If not, uh, as
Question, yeah, question 3.
question 3. Okay,
So option B should be correct, I think.
which of the following are atomic formulas? Father of ada, this one you're saying, is it? Remember father is a function.
Yeah.
Okay, uh, so again I would say revisit the definition of a formula itself. Okay, what is a formula, what is an atomic formula, okay, what are terms and what are functions. Okay, so if you revisit these particular formulas, we had also discussed this in the previous live session. You'll see that this is not actually a formula, this is a term. Okay, because it's a function. That's why this is not considered an atomic formula. Okay,
Okay.
Yeah. You can revisit the lecture or you can also revisit the previous live session. We had discussed a very similar question over here. Balaji, unfortunately, I can't change the date of the live sessions. That is fixed uh, from the very beginning of the course itself. Okay, that neither I can change unless there is a big emergency. The date can't be changed, so I'm sorry about that. But what I can do is I can upload the recordings by Tuesday night itself so that you have the whole of Wednesday to review the uh, recording and change your answers if you have to anywhere. Okay. Mohan, week 4 has been uploaded. So basically, we are moving 1 week ahead, right? So for example, this is, oh, you mean week 4 content or week 4 live session, first of all?
Week 4 live session is not uploaded.
Yeah,
Problem
because
solving live session.
yeah, because we are having it right now. So I'm recording it right now. I will upload it by tonight. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, so if you had been talking about week 4 content, that is already up on the channel as well as on uh, the presentation folder.
Okay. For week 5, is it necessary that you got to be thorough on all the week 4s, or all up to week 4?
It is recommended, but yeah, if you can manage without it, then that's good for you. But yeah, I would suggest that you familiarize yourself with at least some things from week 4 because that will be helpful in doing the columnization part at least or understanding the resolution, refutation, and things like that.
Do you have any one pager ready
Any
reference pager for all each week?
reference pages from the slides, do you mean?
I mean, a condensed
Uh,
revision sheet, something like that.
no, I'm sorry, I don't have that. Actually, the slides themselves that have been put up, they are pretty condensed in themselves. So, yeah, I don't have anything for that. But
Yeah, but
but for week
this,
5, there is something in the lecture materials that was uploaded by Bhaskaran sir. Okay, so if you go to the lecture materials for week 5, one is the slides that you have over here, and then there are some two notes. Okay, one is on clause form, an example from lecture that is explained in step-by-step detail, and then another is
okay.
a notes on squalemization. That is a very brilliant set of notes that Bhaskaran sir has prepared. So you can
Okay.
you should definitely have a look at this later on before answering the assignment.
Oh, at least I am not aware of the existence of this.
Okay, so you can find this. Okay, so when you go to this lecture materials tab over here, no, so this is your Common Swayam portal. When
Yeah, yeah.
these are the videos, just go to this lecture material, and this will lead you
Okay.
to this particular link, either the slides or these notes. Okay, this basically.
Lecture materials. Where is it? Text transcripts. Where is that? Lecture materials. In which
Uh,
tab?
just go to a particular week. Okay,
Uh, okay, okay. Yeah,
and within
got to
each
get into
week,
the particular.
yeah, within each week you will find that lecture material link.
Okay.
Balaji, so unfortunately, this is the first time we are having the live sessions for this particular course. So we don't have anything from the past year, but yeah, we are discussing questions from the past iterations of this course in these live sessions that we are having right now. So hopefully that will be helpful to you and to the people who take the course later on. Yeah, Sureka, you had raised a hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I had one question that where is this live sessions recording we can see last week and this week?
Sure. So
Just show us from where we can see that one.
yeah, sure. So again, you go to the Swayam page. Okay, you have these weeks over here.
Okay.
There is this
Yes,
problem
yes.
solving session over here. Okay, can you see it?
Okay, okay.
Just click on that. Click on this again.
Okay,
That will
okay,
lead you to this click here. Okay. Once you click on this
okay,
thing, this will lead you to Google Sheet.
okay,
So this Google Sheet will contain the links for each week's recordings as and when it is recorded and uploaded on the channel. You can find the YouTube
okay.
channel link over here, and you can also find the link to the Drive folder where all these PDF slides of the questions that we are discussing are also uploaded.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, sir.
sure.
Yes.
So Balaji, I'm not sure if they are still available. So there is something called NPTEL archives. Okay. If you go to NPTEL archives, you can find out some questions from way back, like previous to previous years, I think. But the questions that we are currently discussing are mostly from the previous year, that is 2022. If you want questions from even further back, like 21 or 20, you can check out some NPTEL archives, but I don't have access to them. Uh, it will not allow. Oh, okay, then I'm not sure if I can help you with that. See if any of you can post it in the discussion forum and see if any of your friends who are taking this course currently have access to previous assignments, and maybe they can help. Okay, whatever. Okay, so whatever previous year questions that I have access to, I am sharing that uh, through these live sessions. But other than that, uh, I'm not sure what source to follow. I'll leave you to your resources for that. Sorry about that from my side. Okay, so if there are no further doubts or questions, thanks everyone for attending. You're free to leave. We can meet next week.
Thank you, Kamal.
Yeah, thanks for attending.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for attending.